Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com. Go to #basketball.com right now, check out their premium tools, check out the best scheduler to plan your head-to-head leagues. It's easily the best scheduler on the internet. They're also Mark Roberts' great projections, trade analyzer, and a lot more tools that you can utilize for free to help you win your fantasy league. That is #basketball.com. I am your host, Mike Catron, and joining me as always, well, not always, but at least today, is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
For once, right? Joining me for once.
You only missed one episode. The people were mad. The people demanded that you come back to the podcast. They didn't want to hear me talk all day long.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's not a surprise to you, Michael.
It certainly is not a surprise, but I did call you out at least a few times on the last pod. Once for doubting the greatness of potential NBA scoring leader Zach LaVine.
We're going to talk about that at a later date, but
I think we're going to talk about that tonight.
Well, and here's the only thing I'll say about it. Okay, I don't ever doubted that Zach LaVine could score. He's still terrible for fantasy.
That is fair, but he's not terrible for fantasy right now. And I think the other thing I called you out on was my hot take on Triple J going to be better than Doncic. And
so this is funny that you think you called me out on it. Yet in the listener league, I picked Jaren Jackson Jr. before you did.
Yeah, I'm not happy about it.
I was so down on Jaren Jackson Jr. that I would never take him or anything. All I said was I thought Doncic was going to be better this season, and you thought Jaren Jackson Jr. was going to be better. Well, I don't think that's settled at all, so I don't understand how you think this is some bad call by me.
Everything should be settled after week one, and I think that is a good segue.
I'll say this too. Like, to me, and one of my big arguments was I'm like, well, Doncic is going to play a ton more. And I think that was the case until Gerald Green got his jaw broken.
That is 100% true.
So I still think my call was right.
It was right at the time, but it might not be right at the end, and that's what counts. Tyler, I want to put a giant caveat as I call you out for no reason, just because I enjoy it. It is week one. I mean, I guess it's week two technically here. And we're living in small sample size theater, and tonight we're going to be doing the top 5 sell highs of the first 2 weeks, and or at least the first week at this point. And in my opinion, it's just a little too early to be buying low or selling high. Maybe it's never too early for you, Tyler, but for me, it's this small sample size makes the buy low, sell high a little bit harder to figure out than it will here in about a month.
Well, I'm with you. I think it makes the buying and selling really high or really low almost impossible, because we're in that spot where in a league with smart people who have played fantasy basketball before, right, they're not going to fall for, oh, well, this guy's terrible now, right? Like, well, no, he had a couple bad games. Most people aren't going to fall, for the real big buy low or the real big sell high, right? Like me trading you my guy I just picked up off the waiver wire for your second round pick, right? Like no one's going to fall for that in a league with sharp players.
Yeah, Nico Mirotic or Joe Ingles, both in the top 12. You're not going to be able to trade them for a top 12 guy. And those are not the guys we're going to be trying to talk about. I think those obvious guys that, Karl Anthony Towns is having a bad start. You're not going to get Joe Ingles. You're not going to trade Joe Ingles for Karl Anthony Towns. It's not going to happen. Unless you're in a really bad league, it's not going to happen. We're not going to talk about that.
And I think, too, right, that the thing to say about guys that you buy low and sell high is I think it's always, at any point, really hard to buy someone, especially in those first 2 rounds, and a lot of times even the person's 3rd round pick. I feel like players get so attached to those guys, right? Ooh, I'm going to have Karl Anthony Towns this year. I'm going to have Devin Booker this year. I'm going to have Chris Middleton this year. And even if those guys start off poorly, I feel like no one wants to trade those guys even a little bit low. Just, I think it's like an attachment thing. And I mean, I'm not going to get into all the psychology of that, but I don't see anybody selling low like their top 3 picks very often at all.
No, it's just not going to happen. I mean, there's always a world where you could maybe trade, a second-round player for a first-round player that has a slow start. There's a world where that can happen, and there's a world where you should try to make that happen. But I don't think we're going to focus too much on the obvious breakout guys in week 1, like Nico and Joe Ingles. I think hopefully if you're listening to this podcast, those guys are going to revert to the mean. We talk about it all the time. Same with Kyrie Irving and Karl Anthony Towns. They're going to revert back to the mean. There's nothing to worry about there. But when it comes to these particular guys that we're going to talk to today, right now might be a pretty good time to sell high because they are overperforming, but maybe not overperforming in such a gratuitous way that is so noticeable that you're trying to swindle somebody.
Well, and maybe too they're overperforming in a way that's not like, I feel like people are always willing to buy something they've seen more than something they haven't seen. So when we talk about, trading for players, right, that have been struggling, that's always a little bit, they haven't seen these players do good yet, so that may be a little bit easier. I always feel like it's a little bit easier to sell these guys too because, like, oh, okay, this player has had 3 30-point games in the case of my number 1 player today. And some people just go crazy for points, right? And so it's a little bit easier to sell that, whereas, if the guy was supposed to average 20 points a game and he's only averaging 15, it's a little bit harder to sell that.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about this guy was on both of our lists. Zach LaVine, obviously out to the hottest start of his career, and the Bulls are 0-3. And not only that, Zach LaVine is complaining about the rest of the team not feeding the hot hand, but for some reason not complaining about the fact that no one plays defense, including himself. So a lot of mixed messages coming out of the Chicago locker room. But as you said, Zach LaVine averaging 32 points right now, hitting 3 threes.
And scored over 30 in every game, right? I think that's what we're saying too. He scored over 30 in every game.
1.3 blocks per game, shooting almost 62%. That's almost the easiest thing to look at and say. He's shooting 62%.
Out a little bit.
He's shooting 62%. There's no way that is sustainable. So already you're looking at a guy, you're like, obviously this guy is overperforming.
He blocked as many shots as he did all of last year. Now, granted, he only played 24 games last year. But if you look at his last 71 games, he's blocked 14 shots, and he blocked 4 already this season.
That's absolutely incredible. And he is currently ranked per game in 9-cat leagues 18th. Which is incredibly high, but I don't think what we're saying here is sell high and try to get a second-round player. I think where you're going to go, Tyler, and don't let me put words in your mouth, is that Zach LaVine is not really, probably not even a top 75 player, maybe not a top 50 player, and if you can get a top 50 talent for Zach LaVine right now because he's off to such a hot start, like. I don't know if that's where you're going to go, but I'm interested to hear what you think you can get for Zach.
Well, I think I can probably get a top 50 player because I think we say this all the time. Points are the sexiest category. And they're the sexiest category because they're the largest number, right? Other than percentages-wise, they're the largest number. What kills Zach LaVine's value and what will let me take even a top 75 player, right? Even maybe someone will sell me a Jaren Jackson Jr. because, he's off to a hot start. And, maybe we think he's going to hit the rookie wall or, whatever craziness happens there. This is a guy in Zach LaVine who's gotten you 0.2 blocks each of the last 3 seasons. And he's gotten you a steal or less in his entire career. Right? He's never averaged more than 1 steal a game. He just isn't really helping you that much in fantasy other than he's a box scorer. So I think he could probably score 20 a game on this Bulls team, maybe even a little bit more, right? Points are way up this year. Pace is way up.
That's true.
Shots per 100 possessions are way up. So you got to realize that 20 points isn't as good as it used to be, too. Right? If points are up, then more people are scoring. So therefore, there's more points to go around.
Yeah, I don't think like guys maybe I would end up targeting are your Jamal Murray's, your CJ McCollum's, somewhere in that range where, hey guys, Zach LaVine, he's doing the exact same thing those guys normally do. Maybe he's overperforming, but he's going to be that good. That seems like maybe the mentality of it. Some of those, I don't think you could get into your higher levels of like Klay Thompson's or Donovan Mitchell's. Those guys are too good to compare to Zach LaVine. People are just going to look at that on paper and just go, I'm getting ripped off, even if Zach LaVine is good. But when you start looking at some of these lesser names, that might be the guys you want to target.
You got to know your league too, right? Know your personnel, and you got to know what your team needs. So if your team needs a big man, maybe you look for a guy struggling big man. So the guy that's getting the most panic, and then we can talk about this if you want, as far as big men, is Draymond Green. Now, Draymond Green is not a points guy, so you're trading away a points guy for not a points guy, so that may be a little bit dangerous, but everyone's freaking out about Draymond Green, and he's Draymond Green.
Draymond Green is going to be fine, but I have not seen him look for his own shot in any game. Not even trying.
So, say Draymond Green averages 10 points a game. If he gives you 8 rebounds and 7 assists and a steal and a half and a block and a half, do you care?
I don't think you should have been drafting Draymond Green if you thought you were getting a scorer.
Oh, I've got some players I would like to say that I will try to trade Mr. Zach LaVine for.
Okay.
I've got 4. The criminally underrated in drafts, Eric Bledsoe.
I mean, I'm not sure you're going to get that trade, but I 100% try.
The also maybe underrated in drafts, Mike Conley.
Okay.
Right? I think you get that done.
I like that a little bit more.
A lot of times Mike Conley was getting picked outside the top 50.
Yeah, I think people are down on him. People are maybe up on LaVine, and then people may think they're kind of right in the same ranking when it comes to the end of the year, and Mike Conley is Mike Conley.
Guy who was picked right next to Mike Conley, Gordon Hayward. I'd rather have him.
Yeah, it is beneficial that Chris Dunn is out for 4 to 6 weeks, so that will help Zach LaVine in the long term.
Yeah, and I mean, we can talk about that Dunn injury if you want. I don't really think there's a pickup in Chicago just because isn't the starting point guard going to be Cameron Payne? Like,
oh my god,
yeah.
Oh my god, Cameron Payne.
I'm sure you watched that game, and I saw that game. Is it me or does Cameron Payne looks taller than I remember? Okay, now I have a limited memory of Cameron Payne, but is it me or does he just like take the weirdest shots? Like he has just such an awkward shooting motion. There.
His shot mechanic, I didn't even notice this until this year, but somehow his shot mechanics are worse than Lonzo's. Like,
dude, he just looks like he like lifts the ball up weird and then just like flings it at the basket. Like it's not even like a shot. It's just more like I hope you go in.
He's absolute trash. There's a free Tyler Eulis hashtag going around the Chicagoland area. Just letting you know.
So, should they play LaVine as the point guard and work in more somebody else, Antonio Blakely, somebody else? Like I feel like that's the Blakely. Move.
Yeah.
Is to just play other guys and not a point guard because they don't. I mean, none of those guys. Maybe Shaq Harrison. Right, to give him a shot. I don't.
It's Ryan. Not his name's not Archibald, but Ryan Archibald.
Archie did not. Archie did. Yeah, did not get.
Fucking name is. That guy is playing for some reason, and I guess Fred likes his tenacity. So none of those guys I feel like are ownable, and I also think like Zach LaVine moving to the point is not a Devin Booker situation because Zach LaVine's not going to pass.
But he's not going to share the ball. But
yeah.
At what point is Cameron Payne hurting you more than like they might have to go like straight Cleveland Cavaliers, right? Like the Cavaliers this year don't really have a super pass first point guard, right? Like they got George Hill and Jordan Clarkson and a lot of not great options. Like I mean, the Bulls are losing anyways, so why even play these point guards?
I say play
aren't good.
Play Cameron Payne. I want to lose. This is great. This is fantastic. Yeah, Chris Dunn about 4 to 6 weeks is pretty detrimental. I still think you got to hold on to him. If you have an IR spot,
this is the big question.
If you don't have an IR spot, do you drop him?
That's the big question.
20-some games?
Do you drop him? So I am of the mind, in a 10-team league, you probably have to drop him.
I think you're right.
Because there's just so many options available on the waiver wire, number one. And number two, you're going to lose a lot of those head-to-head weeks holding a guy not playing at all. So in a 10-team league, I think you have to drop him. I don't think it's really much of a thought. In a 12-team league, I start thinking about holding him if I don't have an IR spot. And a lot of it would depend on who is on the waiver wire. Like, I want somebody who's actually going to play decent minutes and get me somewhat productive stats, as opposed to like, if I'm in like a 14-team league, even I think the waiver wire is probably crappy enough. You just hold him and you just eat the games, because I think he's probably a top 50 player, maybe just outside of that this year.
Yeah, it might take him a little while to ramp up too, but I think at some point he will be a top 50 player down the stretch.
And it was the knee too, so I mean, like, it's maybe a little bit easier when it's a hand or something, and he can kind of keep his conditioning up. So I'm a little bit more worried about that. I'm also worried that wasn't it a sprained ACL?
I think MCL.
Okay, MCL. So that's not as bad. I saw somewhere on Twitter where it said ACL. And then I saw where it said MCL, and I was like, well, if it's a sprained ACL, that basically means you tore your ACL. It's just not torn all the way through. I'm worried about it. Is there surgery, or is he just going to rest this thing?
Sounds like it's just rest. It does. I have not heard any word of surgery.
So if he's just going to rest this thing, there's also a high probability that when he plays, he tears it completely.
Great.
And then he's out.
The Bulls have a good track record of all this, so just letting you know.
In saying that, I'd probably be more willing to drop him in a 12-team league, because I think that there's no guarantee that he's going to come back healthy and play a good amount of time. He could try to come back and decide that knee really hurts, or that he tears it fully and then he's out for the rest of the season.
Let's maybe switch it up. Do you sell high on Chris Dunn? If you think his season is going to be shy, he's going to miss 22 games.
I'd trade Chris Dunn for anything I could get at this point, probably.
Wow. I mean, if you're thinking about dropping him, you might as well try to trade him first. That's how I always feel about a lot of players, especially decent players that you think might get picked up off the waiver. Someone might just go, you know what, I'll hold Chris Dunn on the bottom of my bench for a while. All right. Well, wouldn't you rather take the bottom of their bench player instead?
This is literally what I like to do. Is I will literally send out an email to the league and say, hey, Chris Dunn is out for, like, I don't try to like be shady about it. I'm like, hey,
back next week.
Right. Chris Dunn's out 4 to 6 weeks. Like, I'll even link in the tweet or whatever from like one of the beat writers and say, like, this is the news. I'm looking to sell this for anything I can get. If anyone wants to make an offer, feel free. Because if they're going to, like you said, if they're going to cut somebody to pick up Chris Dunn, maybe they want to make that swap with you. And I literally just say, I'm looking for anything. And if no one bites in a day or two, then I just cut him.
It's a good move. It's better than hoping you can pass the waiver on whatever guy they drop. Or, I mean, unless your waiver wire's got some players on it, this might be a time to sell in Chris Dunn. I think if you're in a bigger league, like you were saying, you hold them, unless you can get someone to actually commit into a trade. Let's talk about another one of your sell high candidates here.
No, come on, let's talk about the one last injury. I think this one's worth it too.
Okay, you're right. I did forget about the late great Stephen Willie Barton, out until mid-December.
So here's where that got worse today. So originally they said 5 to 6 weeks. Then today, after he had the surgery, they said he'll be reevaluated in 6 weeks. Which usually to me means like you're
2 more weeks.
Yeah, you're usually at least a week away from playing if you're going to get reevaluated in a week.
At the very least, you're a week away.
So you're looking at 2 solid months, I think, at this point. You're looking at Christmas time.
My advice would be the exact same advice about Chris Dunn.
I think he's a little bit worse than Chris Dunn, just in my opinion. So that's a straight drop for me. And especially if I don't have an IR. Now, if you have an IR, sure, sit him on there. And if you only have one IR spot and someone better in your league goes on IR, then you have to cut Barton, and that's okay. Like, that's fine. Yeah, I'm worried about this. Now, when he comes back, he's going to play a ton. But this is a hip injury, and we've seen guys like Isaiah Thomas not really come back good from a hip injury.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a season.
Yeah, so I'm worried about Barton, and I'm worried about the Nuggets. I just don't think they're a real deep team, and they don't really have anybody. I wrote my weekly #basketball pickup column for the first time of the season this week, and I struggled to name anybody I thought was really going to eat these minutes because we talked about this in the preseason. Like, they're one of the weakest teams as far as wing depth. They don't really have it. I mean, like, who are they going to play? Torrey Craig, and they're going to make Juancho Hernan-Gomez a small forward when he's not. Like,
yeah, I feel like Hernan-Gomez might be like, at least he's got an interesting fantasy ceiling, I guess. It's interesting. I'm not saying good. I'm saying the word interesting because if they're going to play him a little bit more and he's going to, put up some decent minutes, I mean, outside of a large league, I'm still not interested. But
here's the thing I'll say that I think they're going to do. I think they're going to basically try to play matchups. They're going to play Hernan-Gomez when the other team's a little bit bigger, and they're going to play, Torrey Craig when they are Monty Morris when the other team's a little bit smaller. Yeah, I mean, the Nuggets are 3-0 right now, but watch this space. They could fall quickly because they just don't have any wing depth right now.
Yeah, they're one more injury away from the lottery.
Well, and I mean, we talked about this a couple times during the preseason. Like, I just don't know that they're a playoff team in this Western Conference. Like, they're just so not deep, and then the injuries keep piling up on them.
Well, they could be. The pace is up around the league. No one's playing defense, so I mean that will all shift. Small sample size theater out there, guys. That will all shift back to the mean. People will start playing defense at some point, but it's been a really fun start to the season. So Tyler, I want to talk about the rest of your sell highs here, the top 5 sell highs from. I agree with some of these. Some of these I don't agree with, and this is one I'm a little surprised to see on the list. And you have Serge Ibaka here as one of your sell highs, and I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay, so here's what I'll say about this. So, Serge Ibaka plays what position, Michael?
I heard he plays the power forward position.
So, every year before this season, he has played the majority of his minutes, and every season it's been over 80% of his minutes, but one, except for going back to his rookie season, which we won't talk about that. So, for the last 5 years, every season but one, he's played over 80% of his minutes at power forward, according to Basketball Reference. This year, 100% of his minutes at center. 100%. Okay?
Okay.
Now, that could be good for his value as far as it probably lets him get a few more shot blocks. It probably lets him get a few more rebounds. Here's my worry. He's playing 28 minutes, which is about what he played last season. Okay? They also have Jonas Valanciunas, who can only play center. So I think in certain matchups, they're going to want Valanciunas to play a little bit more and Ibaka a little bit less. I'm thinking when the other team has a very big center.
I mean, don't you think they'll still get him minutes at the 4?
They are not playing him at the 4. They have not played him a minute at the 4 yet. He's played 100% of his minutes.
4 games? How many games? 3 games or 4 games?
4 games.
Okay. All right.
And the word from that team is that he is a center now.
That is some deep diving information, Tyler. I'm impressed.
So this is kind of where I want to go with it, though. So he's shooting 50%. He hasn't shot 50% since 2014. He's getting more rebounds. He's getting good blocks. He's averaging 15 points a game, something he hasn't averaged more than 15 points a game since 2014, right?
He's definitely playing a little bit better than he normally does right now.
Right? And so that, plus the fact that what are his minutes going to be against some of these teams? Right? Like if they're...
I don't know. We haven't seen Jonas Valanciunas take over that 30-minute a night role. I mean, like you said, depending on the matchup, we will see. But
yeah, but even if it's 25 and 23 to get the 48, right? If Ibaka gets on the 23 side of that, that's definitely hurting his value.
But don't you think there will be as many games where they want to go with Valanciunas versus games where they don't want to go to Valanciunas and they do play Serge Ibaka at the 5 more?
Yeah, but isn't Valanciunas even in those games still going to come in and play the Enes Kanter 20 minutes?
Oh, probably.
You know what I mean? So then that's limiting him to 28 maximum in those games where he gets the lion's share. And then if you're telling me there's some games where he maybe gets 23, like I just think that's a little dangerous. And so I mean, I think people are valuing Ibaka relatively highly right now, right? They've seen a few good games. They think this move to center might be helping him. I think it hurts his value a little bit because it hurts his minutes a little bit. So I am selling Ibaka for any top 75 player I can find.
Oh, well, now you're talking. I will sell Serge Ibaka for any top 75 player, period. Like that's at any time during the season, because it's just Serge Ibaka is not a. It's really just. I don't think he's going to be a top 75 player. Last year per game he was 73rd, so it is there in 27 minutes per game. So the potential is there, but we were down on Serge Ibaka going into the season, and as you're saying, he's playing very well right now, with the potential, as you're indicating, that playing time might not always be there. That consistency might not always be there from week to week. So yeah, I'm in on selling him for sure.
I think you could probably buy Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, who hasn't played a minute yet.
Yeah.
I think you can probably buy Dario Saric, who I think is going to be better.
I was just talking about Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. A lot of people have dropped him. What are you doing? What's happening? Like, pick him up now.
Yeah, and so he's a guy who doesn't shoot threes, so you got to build around him a little bit, right? If you want to compete in threes, you got to have a strong three-point shooting team. But this guy just, I mean, good blocks, good steals, good assists, good rebounds, good points. Free throw percentage is a little shaky. I mean, it's not as good as you'd like to see, but he shoots good field goal percentage because he doesn't shoot a lot of jumpers because he knows he can't make them.
Yeah, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is going to be good.
And we got
chill out on that.
We got other guys, D'Angelo Russell, right? I mean, he's been struggling a little bit. You get him.
He's going to be fine.
Yeah. So all those guys, I'm willing to take Serge Ibaka and try to go out and get one of those guys. And I think it's doable, right? Because those guys were all kind of picked around Serge Ibaka. You got kind of a hot ticket. They've got kind of a lukewarm ticket. And you can probably make that deal, I think. And the minutes are the big worry. And if you think that he's going to get 28 every night, then maybe you hold on Serge Ibaka. But I just don't think that's the case.
Let's talk about the third player on this list, Tim Hardaway Jr., your boy out of New York. Knox is out. That's actually, I think, a good reason to sell high on Tim Hardaway Jr. Tim Hardaway Jr. playing still just never mind. He is playing 34 minutes a game, which seems a little high. He is currently ranked 37th overall by coming out of the gate and scoring like a maniac, averaging 27 points a game, 1.5 steals. Tim Hardaway Jr. is definitely overperforming. But what do you think you could actually get for a guy who I think people know is a bottom half type of player?
Okay, so you're selling him on the fact that he's scoring 27 points a game through 4 games. Now, here's the crazy part too, and this is how I think you couch the sell of him.
Okay.
He's shooting worse than he shot the last 3 seasons. He shot 42, 45, and 43%. He's shooting 41.8 this season. So
for some reason, he is taking 22 field goal attempts per game.
I think you can get someone to buy in on the fact, though, that like, oh, he's New York's #1 option, blah, blah, blah. Like that.
He might be New York's number 1 option.
Okay, and we talk about it, right? Pace is up. Like New York's playing at a crazy high pace.
Yep.
Here's the thing I don't love about him. Okay, in 34 minutes, he's probably going to get you 1.1 steal and 0.2 blocks with less than 3 assists and less than 4 rebounds. So sure, he might give you, even if he gives you 20 points a game, cool, great. He's a little bit in the Zach LaVine territory of not giving you anything else. Okay, so you gotta sell someone on the fact that he's scoring points and he's actually got some steals this year. But again, I'm not really looking to buy anyone like in the top 40 either. Like I'm looking to sell him for like the similar guys we were just talking about.
Yeah, around those bottom half players that you think are closer to that 50, 60, 70 range versus the guy who's 70 to 100. And I would say Tim Hardaway Jr. is definitely a 70 to 100 type player. So if you can get just a little bit of an upgrade, and that's what we're kind of saying here when you sell high, even a little bit of an upgrade is still an upgrade.
Throw him out for one of those guys who is more of an across-the-board contributor, right? Talk about points being sexy. I'm looking at guys now. Joe Ingles has been really hot, so maybe you don't get him. But there's lots of guys in that range that are similar to Joe Ingles, the Taurean Princes, the Josh Richardsons, the Robert Covingtons. You might be able to snag one of those guys for him.
You want to hear one of the most, I guess, shocking? Well, maybe I'll check Yahoo because I checked ESPN last time. But Yahoo, I don't know if Yahoo's going to be worse or if it's going to be better. And this is about Taurean Prince.
Oh, it's better. It's better on both players. Dude, there was a worse one than Taurean Prince because this guy I'd rather have than Taurean Prince, and he's owned in less leagues. It's Robert Covington. Robert Covington's owned in 27% of ESPN leagues.
That can't be right. We're going to have to stay with the Yahoo rankings because Taurean Prince on Yahoo owned by 92% of teams. Respect to our Yahoo players out there. No respect to ESPN's change in their user interface. And Robert Covington is owned in 95% of Yahoo leagues. So we're going to be switching. We're going to be permanently using Yahoo as our percentage owned because that sounds more realistic.
Yeah, and I mean it's just I mean I get it because if you looked at their preseason rankings, like both those players were outside the top like 120, I believe. So I get why they're not highly owned, but it's like, who's playing in these leagues? Like, are they some sort of like crazy points leagues that like really reward points scored and just nothing points. Else? Like, I don't know. I don't understand it.
I don't either. You know what? ESPN's been also had a lot of bugs, and maybe this is one of them because those numbers just don't sound realistic.
Here's the other thing I'll say. Next week, so we're talking week 3. We're in week 2 right now. Week 3, the Sixers and the Blazers both play 5 games. So if Robert Covington is somehow on your ESPN waiver wire and you don't pick him up, I think that is a very, very foolish move.
I agree.
And any of those, Sixers, Blazers guys, right? Some fringy guys, like you might be forced, especially if you play in a weekly lock league, to start those guys. They both teams play 5 games next week, so that's just kind of a heads up to looking ahead.
All right, let us talk about the last 2 guys on this list. De'Aaron Fox, who is having a very nice start to the season, scoring a lot, shooting 52%. That's your glaring obvious. De'Aaron Fox is overperforming type of stat.
60% on 2-pointers.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. That's going to revert to the mean pretty well, but I don't know about like the rest of his stats though. I'm not sure how much of the rest of his stats revert to the mean, but definitely that field goal percentage is on its way out.
So I like to flip it and look at per 36-minute stats on, especially even on young players, because if Mark Roberts has taught us anything, it's that those per 36-minute stats are pretty sticky, meaning regardless of how many minutes the person plays, they're per minute basically the same player for the most part. So he's playing 35 minutes a game. If you know anything about Dave Yeager's rotation, and as a man who's covered the Sacramento Kings and Dave Yeager's crazy rotations, I can tell you this. Yeager has moments and spurts in his life where he's going to play Yogi Ferrell and Frank Mason a bunch, just a random game or two, and he's going to limit Fox to like 20 minutes. He does it. Don't ask. There's no reason. Don't try to.
Visited by the ghosts of Kings past. Peja Stojakovic, Doug Christie shows up. Sometimes a white chocolate version of Jay Will shows up and says, "You got to play Yogi Ferrell. You can't sit." De'Aaron Fox. And then he wakes up in a cold sweat and he changes the lineup.
Yeah, so here's the other couple things I'll say in the U.S. specifically about the other stats. So he averaged 3.6 rebounds per 36 last year. This year he's up to 5. I don't really see any reason for that. They have Sacramento has a lot of big men. He's just falling into some boards right now that he's not going to fall into. He averaged 5.7 assists. He's averaging 7.8 assists per 36 minutes. And
I think a little bit of a jump in assists and
but those are
reasonable, but
those
not
are per 36 minute stats too. They're not okay, so that's important to remember. Now, here's what I'll say about Fox from watching him most of last year. Because he can't shoot a jump shot, most people think he's a pass first point guard, right? Like he's a guy trying to get the ball out of his hands. He is much more of a scoring point guard than people think. He's not a super high assist guy. If he topped 5.5 assists per game this year, I would be super impressed. That means he took a big leap in his passing numbers. That would be a whole assist per game more than he got last year. So 7.7 not sustainable. He's probably going to get maybe 1 point. I mean, the steals are probably a little bit high. 1.2, 1.1 is probably where he ends up. And if he scored more than like 17 points a game, he'd be doing real good for himself. So his numbers are just all a little bit inflated right now. Plus, I think, too, that some people get excited about these young players and they're willing to buy a little higher on a young guy because they can get sold on something Mike just said, right? Oh, well, he could take a big jump, right? He's only 21. He could do this. He could do that. He could do the other thing. I mean, I just don't know. I
think with the opportunity, those numbers should go up a little. Those numbers are up a lot, and his field goal percentage is up a lot. So he's definitely playing, after 3 games, small sample size, he's definitely playing a lot better than he is going to be finishing. So if you can get, I'd say anybody in the top 100 for De'Aaron Fox, I'm interested in making that deal.
Yeah, and like obviously you got to know what you're selling, and you got to obviously look for someone in your league that maybe is getting hyped on these guys. But I mean, I mentioned a few guys, a few other guys I'll mention. Nick Batum hasn't had a great start. You can sell him, sell his owner, and I think that's a wise move in the long run. You could also look at, and I mentioned this with Ronnie Hollis Jefferson, but look for some of these other guys who haven't really played, right? Dwayne Dedman's going to play his first game tomorrow. Maybe you need a big man. Dwayne Dedman should be good.
Yeah.
Another guy who hasn't played yet, Harrison Barnes. Like, if you're telling me who's going to play better this season, De'Aaron Fox or Harrison Barnes, give me Harrison Barnes.
The three box scores from De'Aaron Fox look really, really great. One of the games is a 42-minute game. The other one is a 37.5-minute game. It looks really, really good right now. So this would be a good time to go, hey, this guy might, this guy might be worth something. I do think he finishes out of the top 100 this year still.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with just he's a poor efficiency guy, where he shot 41%, and he shot 72%, and I don't really see any reason why those take like huge increases.
If you don't care about that, then this is less of a sell high situation.
Well, and here's the other thing too. So he shot 30% on 3-pointers last year. He's shooting 41% in the small sample size, even though he's making every 2-point shot he can make. So that's another reason to look at it. Like, he didn't fix his jumper. It's just he's getting to the rim and scoring right now. Is he going to be able to get to the rim and score in every game? I tend to think not.
Yeah, he got to the rim and scored against Utah, which is actually impressive. New Orleans, which is actually kind of impressive too. But those were, at least the New Orleans one was a blowout. And then OK City, which is actually, I'm a little impressed. But definitely.
Schroeder's not a good defender. I mean, and it was,
no, of course not.
And that was Westbrook's first game, so he played some in that game, obviously. But in your first game back, are you ever looking super great? Like, even the best players don't usually look, especially on both ends of the floor. A lot of them say, like, a lot of the LeBron, Westbrook types save it for offense and let you blow past them a few times. Yeah, Westbrook's
unstoppable Android person. There's no way he should be back right now, and here he is playing. Let's go to the last guy here on your list. I'm not surprised about this one, but I need to hear the context of putting Karis LeVert on your sell high list?
Okay, so I believe you talked about Karis LeVert in your podcast, your solo pod you did yesterday.
I did. I think we even talked about him before that, saying he's a must pick up after night one, after the real night one. That he looks like a legit player. Looks like he's going to be a focal point on that Brooklyn offense, and that Brooklyn offense is going to be kind of interesting. He's a good across the board type player. He's currently ranked 25th, which is definitely not something we said he would be by the end of the year. But I think this Karis LeVert's a top 70, maybe even a top 60 type player before the year ends. Are you saying he is outside of that, or are you saying let's fuel this hype train and get somebody who's a real asset with how well Karis LeVert's playing?
So here's my worry for Karis LeVert. Okay, he played 26 minutes a game last year. Okay. The Nets are DeMarre Carroll's out, right? And he's not due back for a little while. Okay. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is going to be back any day now.
That's true.
Okay. Alan Crabb missed a game.
Yep.
So I think, right, and they playing Joe Harris 30 minutes a game, right? We saw Joe Harris play like 15 minutes a game last year. I think just some of these injuries on kind of that wing spot are building up a little bit, and it's forcing the Nets to play Karis LeVert a little more than they want to. So there's the start of why I'm going to sell high, is if he's only going to play 28 minutes a game instead of 31, well, there's a hit to his value right there. He's another guy shooting 65, 40% from three, and 87 from the line. Well, so far for his career on free throws, he's a 72% shooter. That's not great, okay? So he shot 45% as a rookie from the field. Maybe he can shoot that good again. Cool, party. That's fine. He does a little bit more in the rebounds and assists categories, but he averaged 12.1 points a game. Even if you want to flip it to per 36, he's averaged 16.6 points a game last year. Like, he's not a big-time scorer, but if I can sell somebody on the fact that he is a big-time scorer, I think I could get some real good value. And I'm with you. Like, he could easily be a top 75 player this year, but if I can sell him for a Ricky Rubio or a Jeff Teague, right? Some of these guys who were some people drafted outside the top 50 that I think are top 50 players, I'd do that in a second.
Yeah, I'm actually with you on that. I think once you get into that Jeff Teague, Ricky Rubio range, guys who are have always finished these seasons in the top 60, even in the top 50, those are no-brainers. Karis LeVert, definitely some question marks. And I think the points you bring up about the fact that, like, with Rondae Hollis-Jefferson back, with more hands to feed on the starting roster, the usage is going to go probably down a little bit. He is definitely playing the best basketball he's ever played. And those percentages are going to revert no matter what.
Here's the other
definitely going to happen.
Here's the other thing I wanted to say, too. He's shooting 13.3 shots a game. No one's even going to score 20 points a game on 13.3 shots, right? At 13.3 shots, he's literally going to score like 15 points a game at most. That's with shooting like 47% from the field. You know what I mean? He's taking 7 free throw attempts a game. He took 2.6 per game last year.
He is not a 25-point scorer.
He's not even a 20-point scorer. He's not even a 17-point a game scorer. He's like a 15-point a game scorer in 31 minutes.
Yeah, I'm more saying when we went and talked about picking him up is the fact that I think he's going to be a standard league relevant player.
Oh, 100%. If he's playing even 27 or 28 minutes, you're talking 1.2 steals, you're talking 13, 14 points, you're talking 4 assists, you're talking pretty close to 4 rebounds. Like, he's definitely standard league holdable, ownable.
Oh, yeah.
If you can't sell him, you keep this guy on your roster. Don't get me wrong. But I'm thinking you can sell this guy right now for probably a top 50, top 60 player. I don't think he's that good.
I think you might be right, Tyler.
And so that's why I'm trying to sell high is if I can take this player who's a top 75 player and turn him into a top 50 player, that's a net 20 spot win, right? Like we talk about this in the draft all the time. I'm trying to get somebody 15 or 20 spots lower in the draft than where I think he's going to finish. So if he's going to finish top 50, I want to pick him at like 65. If I can do that, I think that's a huge win. And that's how I win the league. Trading a player like this for a player like that is how you win the league.
That is a great, absolute great point, Tyler. I like that idea. I like all those guys, really. Other than the Serge Ibaka one took some convincing, but all those guys are sell highs. Zach LaVine, obviously, Karis LeVert, De'Aaron Fox, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Serge Ibaka. We will be running this segment back throughout the season. So if you guys like what you hear, rate, review us, leave us feedback on Twitter. If you want to hear more stuff like this, you can find me at Watch the Boxes. You can find Tyler at Tyler P. Watts. That's WATTS. And if you really want to support the program here, patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. Shout out to all our subscribers. You guys have been essential in keeping this podcast going. We really appreciate all of you, and we will catch you next time. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com. #basketball.com is your one-stop shop for fantasy basketball tools. They got a lot of really great premium tools out there, trade analyzers, projections from our good friend Mark Roberts. Go check out #basketball.com right now. I am your host, Mike Catron, and joining me as always is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
Oh, Michael, it is a great day. We are going to talk about a very fun topic, so I am excited.
Yeah, we are going to talk about the best way to spit in Chris Paul's face. So is it like a loogie, or is it just more like a spritz? Like which one do you think is the best?
Dude, Rondo went with a spritz smartly. That way, if you go with a spritz, then you can be like, I didn't mean to spit in his face.
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. They caught him on camera, though.
Yeah, but like if you go for the spritz, you can just be like, "Oh, that was an accident, bro. I didn't mean to do that." Whereas if you go for the straight loogie, like, there's no denying that. There's no denying that one.
Yeah, if you're going for a full hawk, like your hawk are all over Chris Paul's face, he's gonna have evidence like dripping off his eyes. Like I just couldn't happen to a better two players to get punched in the face and spit on and. Screw both of them, but a very short suspension for all of them.
That's exactly what I was gonna say, man. Like 4 games is nothing.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that.
I thought it was gonna be like 10 and like 8 and 8, and we got 4 and 3 and 2.
Yeah, there was some real punches thrown, and a little if it isn't Chris Paul, this is a little longer. Then again, Rondo threw Kirk Heinrich into a scoring table and didn't even get kicked out of a game. So, there's a history of Rondo not getting the fair punishment that he deserves. But Ingram getting the most punishment there. I completely agree with that. Maybe don't run up on somebody and punch him in the back of the head.
Is that your life tip?
Unless
not run up on someone and punch them in the back of the head.
Listen, unless your life is on the line or like your family is being threatened, like there's some certain circumstances where you could go punch somebody in the back of the head when they aren't looking. But when 2 people are squaring up to fight, it's a regular fight. Stay the hell out of it.
Yeah, that whole situation was just.
This is not a full-on street fight, y'all. This was on an NBA court, but they actually threw punches. It was pretty exciting. But let's talk about the most popular. I guess this is probably the most popular topic that we get hit up on throughout the year. Our buy lows for the the first week or so of the season. A lot of slow starts out there. It's a little too early, I think, to, as we keep saying, to panic. So don't. But it's also hard to get a buy low past someone who has obviously been a really good draft pick. It's only 3 or 4 games. So, like Karl Anthony Towns is having a really slow start. really doubt you're going to be able to sneak a buy low past the owner of Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, and I mean, I mentioned this in the sell highs when we did. I think any top 3 round pick is just, it's always difficult to buy or sell in any way except for fair value, and it's just has a lot to do with like level of attachment to those players.
Yeah, if you think you could like kind of like sneak out a deal for Cat Daddy or Kyrie Irving or whatever, I think Oladipo, a guy that we were saying like if those steals and blocks revert, isn't going to be as wealthy as he once was. It's a small sample size, but there it is.
Let's throw out the big 3 first-round players I think are struggling the most, right? Because Towns at least had a good game.
True.
That last game for Minnesota, Towns was good. So the 3 guys struggling the most, if you ask me, and they're picked in the top 3 rounds, are Victor Oladipo, they're Draymond Green, and the other guy just slipped right out of my head just as I was saying it. So maybe you can help me.
Oh my God, who was it?
Oh, Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie Irving, yes.
Yeah. So, those guys, okay, they're struggling a little bit, but even if you're going to buy low on them, like how low is anyone really going to take? So, okay, you picked Kyrie Irving at pick 25 and someone might give you pick 20. You might be able to sell him for pick 28.
Let's even say Mike Conley was doing well, which is, not really.
He's fine, right?
He's playing fine. But let's say Mike Conley was doing really well and Kyrie Irving was doing worse. You really think that guy who owns Kyrie Irving is going to trade you for Mike Conley?
And so I think at that point, right, like you're trading a guy of like almost the exact same value. So at that point, like, is that even really a good move for you? Like if you move up a spot or 2 in the draft, well, if you felt a little bit better about that other player, okay. But at the same time, like, I think you're going to kick yourself if for whatever reason the guy you traded for gets hurt and the guy you didn't trade, is the player you thought he was going to be all along. So those aren't ever the kind of moves I'm trying to make. It's just like, I feel like, how low are you really going to sell Victor Oladipo, right? Like if someone picked him in the top 12, which happened in like every Yahoo league I was in, what are you going to get? If you're going to sell your guy you picked at 20 for him, well, is Victor Oladipo going to be that much better than whoever you picked at pick 20? Be that Jimmy Butler, be that
it's a bit of a shuffling of chairs. Like maybe if you can sneak in, like maybe if you wanted to do Kyrie Irving for Oladipo because you don't really need Kyrie Irving stats, you'd rather have Victor Oladipo stats. Okay, cool, do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
So like that's all the only advantage you're gonna get is like if your team build kind of needs one guy over the other.
And so we're not going to mention any of those players. Like the highest picked player on this list was picked outside of the top 30.
I think, yeah, you're right. Some of these guys were picked even lower. And I'm going to start with your boy, your favorite player of all time, Slick Rick Rubio, who is really having a pretty awful start to the season. Just really not got his shot under him at all. Really, not even like putting in a dent on leading that team in anything. He's shooting 25%, currently ranked in the bottom 200. Really doesn't have a good game under him. Even though that second game, 13 and 10 is kind of like a Ricky Rubio-ish, but the steals are not there and the shooting is completely gone. So
if we look past the first game, the numbers look a lot better though.
What was it? 1 for 8, 2 for 8 there in the second game or the third game, I mean.
So yeah, so like it's been 2 bad games, don't get me wrong. But the steals aren't there yet. He's got 2 in 3 games. We've seen Ricky Rubio be one of the best steal guys in the NBA for the last how many seasons has he played in the NBA now, Mike?
35.
You know what I'm saying? Like every year he's played, he's been one of the better steal guys in the league. So to think he's not going to be, averaging more than 1.5 steals a game, right? This is his 8th season. I think that's pretty safe to come back. He's going to give you – he's still averaging 6 assists a game, which is more than he got last year. And the real thing is he's just not scoring because he's shooting 25%.
Yeah, this fits a narrative of what we said going into the season this year A lot of people last year saw Ricky Rubio's stats and said, wow, he had a really pretty crappy season. He really fell off. In the second half, though, Ricky Rubio was actually an incredibly good fantasy player. Now he's starting out this season very poorly. There's a chance that the guy who drafted him maybe didn't want him, but he was available, maybe didn't know he wanted him. Isn't really too high on Ricky Rubio in the first place. So you might be able to swindle that guy with a barely a top 100 player to move Ricky Rubio over to your team.
Right. And Ricky Rubio is a slow starter every year a little bit.
Yeah, he is a slow starter.
I mean, if you look historically throughout his career, like he's always been significantly worse in those first couple months, and then he kind of turns it on as the season comes on. There is a lot of players I think you could probably, swap Ricky Rubio for that are significantly worse players than him.
If you
Goran Dragic, man, Dragic's been playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
Right?
He has.
I'd offer that today, and I'd be happy when the guy said yes. There's Tim Hardaway Jr. Talked about his great start in the last episode. Do that. Serge Ibaka, do that. Like all these guys, do it, man. Just float an offer for like barely a top 100 player for Ricky Rubio and be like, just hope the guy bites. And here's the other thing, okay? So you might offer your player you picked right around 100, and he might come back with a player like the player you picked in the round before that. So be that like pick 80 something.
He's like, oh, I want a little bit of upgrade. Okay, well, that's still a pretty good haul for Ricky Rubio.
Exactly. So that's kind of where I'd start the conversation and be like, hey, maybe you pick a different position and say, hey, my team needs a point guard. Thought maybe you'd want to trade Rubio. Here's this guy. Maybe he comes back with something. I still think Ricky Rubio finishes the season in the top 50.
You heard it here. Ricky Rubio, top 50 player. Next guy on the list, another just poor shooting start. Jamal Murray, a guy we said who was going to be very good. And I still fully believe in Jamal Murray. There's just absolutely no reason not to believe in Jamal Murray based on his season last year. So he is playing a little injured, right?
Yes, this one's hilarious to me too, that people are asking me, should I drop this player? Because look at his stats minus the shooting percentages and the points. Like literally go to Basketball Reference right now. I'll give you a second to Google it and look at his stats. They are exactly the same except for he's missing his shots right now. Therefore, he has less points. Every other stat, he averaged 0.3 blocks last season, 0.3 blocks right now. He averaged 1 steal, 1 steal. 3.4 assists, 3.3 assists so far. 3.7 rebounds, 3.3 rebounds so far. Pretty much every stat there is like almost exactly identical. The only thing is he shot 13.1 field goal attempts last year. He's shooting 13 exactly this year. The difference is he shot 45% last year. He's shooting 30% through 3 games.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a little bit harder. Ricky Rubio doesn't have like a game. He's got one Ricky Rubio game, right? Well, Jamal Murray's got a peak Jamal Murray game against, of course, it was Phoenix.
And so here's why I debated putting this player on there. I think he was a little overdrafted, and I think we talked about that. He was a guy getting picked in like 35, 40, and we talked about him being more of a 50 ranked player, right? They thought he was going a little
solid 50 player.
So it might be a little harder to buy low on this guy because you might only be able to trade him for like 50. But here's the other thing about buying a player like this. He's 21 years old. He took a big leap last season. There's the potential that he takes another pretty good-sized leap in year 3.
Yeah, and Will Barton's out now too. So they're going to rely on Jamal Murray a little bit more. And I think it's good. Like I said, it's going to be hard because that Phoenix game, if you own him, you go, well, this is what he can do.
So
even though he only had 3 points in the next game, I'm still willing to hold on to him. So it's going to be harder to get Jamal Murray. But if someone is pissed off about owning Jamal Murray, it's a good time to strike.
I've got 4 guys. I'd like to ask you, who would you rather have? Okay. Now we'll play in the vacuum a little bit because some of these guys are big men, and obviously that's going to come down to what your team needs.
That's true.
But here are 4 guys who are definitely drafted after Jamal Murray. And we can debate on which guy we'd rather have if you want. So here we go. You ready for the first one?
I am ready.
Mr. Jared Allen.
That's a tough that's a legitimately good question.
Right? And in a lot of leagues, Murray was picked like some of them were pretty close to 20 spots ahead.
I might go Jared Allen there, actually.
Yeah, and that one's tough because they're both young guys who could get a lot better.
I just like I like the fact that Jared Allen is a harder player to replicate, while if you have Gary Harris, you do not need Jamal Murray.
Well, and we've talked about this in preseason. I think Gary Harris is better than Jamal Murray.
We said it a lot, and I think it's going to be much better this year.
So there's that one, okay? How about Enes Kanter, who's playing pretty much out of his mind right now?
I love you. I love Enes Kanter in a vacuum. Oh, I love you. I love you, Enes Kanter. Jamal Murray.
Yeah, I think that's the swap you make, and I think that's the swap people will do right now because they're like, oh my God, look at those points and rebounds from Enes Kanter. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say in a vacuum, I would rather have Jamal Murray for the rest of the season than Enes Kanter. But for the first half of this season, I think I'd rather have Enes Kanter, because we talked about this a lot going into the season. Who the hell is going to be trying to get Enes Kanter's minutes? A lot of people started drafting Mitchell Robinson. That was a joke. Like, Enes Kanter was going to clean up. He is cleaning up, and he will continue to clean up until the Knicks decide to bring back Porzingis, and I'm not sure when they're going to even do that. Okay,
I'm with you on that, and I think Enes Kanter is always underrated in fantasy. Just in general, I think that he gets picked too low far too often.
Yeah, if you care about percentages, if you're especially if you're in a roto league, he is a fantastic pick.
All right, so my last two. Okay. Should I go for the man close to your heart or the man not close to your heart first? Which would you rather hear?
Save the guy I like for last.
Okay, Blake Griffin. He's been doing awesome.
Oh, that's a tough choice, actually.
To me, that's a really smart move because I don't trust Blake Griffin to stay healthy.
I don't either. I'm taking Murray.
So if I can sell Griffin relatively high and buy a guy like Jamal Murray, I will do that 10 times out of 10. Now, I wouldn't have drafted Blake Griffin, so I don't have to worry about it. But
never have to worry about that. I mean, Blake did just score 50 points the other night, so that's impressive. And Blake Griffin is going to be a fantastic fantasy player until he gets injured.
Yeah, and so there's that. And so then the last guy is your man, the man hitting everything for the New Orleans Pelicans right now.
Yo, Nico.
It's the beardless Nico.
Man, you really picked some good picks here. These are not one and done type of, like, no thought process type of picks here. Oh, who would I rather have?
This is the kind of trade you're going to have to make, right? Like, if you want to buy low on Jamal Murray, who was picked in that 35 to 40 range, like, you're going to have to give up someone picked just outside the top 50 to do it. Like, you're not going to buy low and just give away, like, Jabari Parker, who's been crap, right? Like, you're going to have to give away someone who else is good.
You're right. I want Nico, though, because I think the Pelicans team is playing at a really high pace. I think anyone who plays around Anthony Davis is going to thrive, and I think they've really figured out that offense. So I'm taking Nico Mirotic.
And here's the other thing I'll say about buying Jamal Murray is he's not a great steals and blocks contributor, and he's not a great rebounds and assists contributor. So, like, he needs to do a little bit more to really get my fantasy tongue wet.
Well, he's across the board type of player, so he does everything just well or a little bit more than well. And that adds up over a 3 to 4 game period over the week. You got a guy who's contributing at everything just a little bit.
Yeah, but in a head-to-head league, I guess I might want some of these other players because, like, I feel like Jared Allen's going to give me one of the better block totals in the league. I feel like Enes Kanter is going to be one of the better rebounders in the league. I feel like Nico Mirotic could be elite in three-pointers. Like, they're giving me an elite category, whereas Jamal Murray, okay, maybe you could say free throw percentage, but he's not taking a high volume, so even that, like, he's not really giving me anything elite. He's just good. Just good.
Yeah, we talk about the importance of streaming, especially in a head-to-head league, is that you do want those players who can get you, like, guaranteed 8 rebounds tonight. And with Jamal Murray, if he's not just kind of like a guy you plug and forget, if you really need someone to fit a different type of role, then Jamal Murray is just less valuable to you.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I think float some offers, and maybe you go even a little lower than the players I mentioned. You know, maybe you go down to that kind of next tier where you're floating out a Zach LaVine, right? Like if I could make the Zach LaVine for Jamal Murray trade, I'd do that in an instant. And maybe you don't get that, and so then you got to make a decision if you want Jamal Murray or not. You're probably gonna have to pay for him.
You probably will. Another guy who is one of our favorite players to talk about, right in this kind of similar range as well. Robert Covington, off to an aggressively slow start, but we know as beautiful Bob Covington fans that he is a streaky player, and he will he'll be a top 20 player for a stretch at some point in this season. He will be a bottom 20 player at some point in this season, and it almost seems like he is turning it around just a little bit already. So Bob Covington, you got him as a buy low guy, but he is currently ranked per game 38th.
Yeah, so he had a good game tonight.
Yes.
He had in his third game against Detroit, which this maybe give you a little inside baseball on when we recorded this. Here's the thing I'll say about Robert Covington. He doesn't do anything sexy. So people are always willing to sell a guy like this a little bit low. And they don't recognize that he's a great steal guy or that he gets you close to a block a game. He's owned in 27% of ESPN leagues.
Yeah,
and it's
that
down.
has to be wrong.
Dude, listen to
that
this.
Has to be wrong. ESPN has a bug. It's wrong.
Listen to this, though. I don't think it's wrong, but maybe it is, and we can debate about that. He was owned in 33% of leagues on Sunday when I was looking up the list for my weekly column on #basketball, and now it's down 6%.
Yeah, that
6% of people dropped Robert Covington for no reason. Okay,
there's something going on ESPN's site that is incorrect. He's at over 90 on Yahoo's site. I don't think we can rely on those ESPN owned numbers at this time.
Okay, that's fair, and maybe that's the case. Here's the reason I'll say you buy him low, though. Look at the historical data. No one thinks he's going to play 34 minutes. No one really thinks, right? And if people have owned, especially if there's smart people in your league who've owned Covington, they think, just like Mike said, that he's real streaky. So now he's played a couple good games. And they're probably thinking, oh, God, but that cold streak's coming where he shoots like 30% for a while. Oh, man, should I just trade Covington now? If I come in with a good offer on Covington, and in most leagues, Covington was picked outside the top 50. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, majority of leagues.
I think Covington is right in that 40 to 60 range somewhere. Safely in that 40 to 60 range. So if I come with a good offer, a Zach LaVine, here's a guy that's been playing real good, a rookie. This one might be a little get at a gamble because he's obviously going to get some good minutes now. Jaren Jackson Jr., right? Like, okay. Give me the safety of Robert Covington over a Jaren Jackson Jr. I might make that trade.
I like that.
Goran Dragic, we talked about him. He's been playing out of his mind. Maybe I can make that deal. I'm looking to make a deal here for a guy, no one like super low valued. Just someone where I could kind of sneak in there and get Covington right now and enjoy the fruits of Robert Covington all season. The good steals, the good blocks, the good threes.
Bob Covington is a fantasy player's gold, basically. He always is. He's been known in the fantasy world for years and years. Good players always have him on his team. I think people finally found out about him recently over the last season or two. But even the casual fan just couldn't pick Bob Covington out in the lineup. So I like any scenario that gets Bob Covington on your roster. Let's talk about one of the more bigger names that we have on this list. And I think a very public name and a public slow start. Gordon Hayward, currently per game ranked 82nd. averaging only 11.7 points a game, shooting 42%. Even his free throws are around 66, 67%. Really incredibly slow start to Gordon Hayward, but like that's to be expected, right? He's coming off a season-long injury. He's playing himself back into shape. He's playing himself basically back into the ability to play basketball at the highest level. It was always going to take a while for Gordon Hayward to get up to speed. This seems kind of like a long-term no-brainer where if you could sell real low, or if you could buy real low, excuse me, Gordon Hayward, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, if I can buy Gordon Hayward for any player drafted outside the top 50, that's a move I'm making 10 seconds from now.
Yeah, I'd rather have Bob Covington, but other than Bob Covington, Gordon Hayward, I think makes a lot of sense for you to send your, like you said, your Zach LaVines, your Taurean Princes, even in that direction.
Yeah, right. And there's numerous guys. Josh Richardson's playing well. You gonna tell me I can trade Josh Richardson for?
Yeah, we're a little down on Josh Richardson. He might be better than we are going to give him credit for, but like, you know, I'm still something doesn't pass the smell test with Josh Richardson.
Yeah, so make that move. That's a move I am making at 100% of the time. Sell people on, the Celtics got a lot of guys. They're going to share the ball. They might not play Gordon Hayward a ton. You know what I mean? And get yourself some Gordon Hayward because I think it's going to be a great season for Hayward.
Yeah, I think he will pick it up. It might take, you know what? It might take a month. It might take more than a month. But I think Gordon Hayward will be playing back into a top 50 form at some point.
Would it surprise you, too, if we're looking at this at November 23rd, right? Exactly 1 month from when we record this, and Gordon Hayward's already averaging like 17 points a game and playing 30 minutes and being the old Gordon Hayward. Like it wouldn't surprise me at all if he caught it fast.
0%. I think people keep saying, well, there's a lot of mouths to feed on the Boston Celtics, y'all. It's like, yeah, there is. Does that mean Gordon Hayward's going to average 20 points? And no, probably not. Kyrie Irving's going to get his. And I think you've seen as this season started, they continue to defer to Jason Tatum, a guy that we were not high enough on. You know, I regret not kind of reading through the tea leaves because those are hard tea leaves to read. You figure Kyrie's coming back, Hayward's coming back, but Jason Tatum, it does seem like the kind of the de facto go-to scorer at this point on that team. That's going to adjust, and it's going to be more well-rounded, and they're probably going to take turns over the years once Kyrie and Hayward get into form. So, I do expect bumps from all of them. Tatum, maybe a little regression for me how he started his first 3 games, but I'm not too worried about him. That's not like a sell high type of guy. Tatum, you don't sell.
Yeah, and I think too that they're gonna stagger things up a little bit more going forward, where it's Hayward and Irving, and then it's Tatum and Hayward, and then it's and so they kind of take turns and they all get their share of the pie. So I'm never too worried about that. I mean, Golden State's had how many great players for how long, and they all eat, man. Everybody eats.
That's true. And also Boston's already played Philly and Toronto. So those are 2 tough games. They barely beat the Knicks, and they did lose to Orlando. So, they're going to come up here and feast on some of these trashy East Coast teams here in a little bit, even though they barely squeaked out one against a real bad team and then lost to Orlando, which, hey, stuff happens.
Well, and two, I think we see a lot of these teams with new players, and we can say Gordon Hayward's played there last year, but he played 5 minutes. Like, it takes a while to integrate some of these guys and to just get used to playing all together, right? Like that Celtics lineup that they want to play didn't play together a ton last year, and Al Horford's now playing center, so that he's adjusting to that a little bit, and it's a work in progress for them, but when they catch it, they're going to catch it quick, man.
And real quick, let's just mention the obvious that I think we just glossed over. Gordon Hayward's on a minutes restriction. He's playing 25 minutes a game. That's going to go back up to 30. So those minutes will go up as the season progresses, and that means more usage. That means more touches, more scoring, more everything. So if you got people who can't read how many minutes per game Gordon Hayward's playing because ESPN doesn't have it in their user interface, you might want to try to trade for Gordon Hayward.
Well, and here's the other thing too is, I mean, you can sell people. Sometimes we've sold people on this in the past. Is you can sell a guy in your league on, man, when's this minutes restriction going to be lifted? Right? Like maybe he plays out for the next 2 months. Right? Some people get worried about that kind of stuff, and they want to move a player like Hayward. Like, oh God, he's only playing 25 minutes. How long is that going to last?
How many weeks am I going to lose? And you got to play the player too. Like you got to go to that team and go, well, the team with Gordon Hayward is in second to last place. I'm going to trade this sucker a couple guys just to make him feel like he's okay. I have Gordon Hayward on my team. He's only playing 25 minutes a game. This bullshit. You know, you can sucker people out like that because they're a little desperate to win here at the beginning of the season, even though there are plenty of weeks to go.
Speaking of last place, Michael.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Who is in last place in Michael's boring redraft listener league with all the fans?
I'm guessing it might be Tyler, but I don't know. I haven't checked it out lately. Who is in last place over there?
Oh, Michael, I won my first matchup and I'm in third place.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I haven't checked that league in a little while, so I don't know.
Michael not winning a category and dead last place in week 1.
Not a good start. Not a good start at all. So, but like I said, it is a long season. But when you have Ben Simmons hurt and Chris Dunn hurt and Rajon Rondo suspended, longer season than I thought it would be. Also, a lot of my later picks not panning out at all. So I'm going to have to make some moves here in a little bit, but it's way too early to panic. I don't panic in the first 2 weeks.
I just was surprised when I looked down, and so I'm like, not winning a category, taking
So was I. Let's talk about the last guy on this list. Another big name, Klay Thompson, currently per game ranked 183rd, scoring only, still playing 33 minutes, but only scoring 14 points a game, hitting less than a 3 a game, and only shooting 37%. I think there's some pretty obvious regression to the mean that is going to happen here.
Yeah, and this is where I kind of wanted to go with this, and this is why I put him on the list. All the Warriors, right? Other than Curry's playing well. Draymond Green struggling.
Hey, by the way, I want to give a shout out to you, Tyler, and to myself. Remember when we said everybody was skipping over Steph Curry in the first round, and that was a really dumb idea, and that he should be a top 4 pick, and that he could be the best player in the fantasy world this year? And I'm gonna go out there and wager that he might be going for another MVP right now. So you probably should have took our advice and drafted Steph Curry. Not maybe in that top 4 instead of waiting till like the 9th or 10th pick.
ESPN just released some rankings yesterday.
Oh God!
And Steph Curry was ranked 12th.
Like fantasy rankings or human?
No, they were fantasy rankings for their standard points league, which maybe their standard points league has a different.
Well, if it does, they need to adjust that to adhere to the greatness of Steph Curry.
But guess who was number 11? Oh man, this was so good.
Joel Embiid,
LaMarcus Aldridge.
Wow. Hey, Aldridge is having a good start.
Okay, well, you guys could all have LaMarcus Aldridge over Steph Curry. You enjoy it.
That's one of the dumbest things I've heard.
So
apparently,
this is our annual. This is our daily throw some shade on them. Poor guys. And maybe they'll hit us up. Maybe they'll get us over there.
Yeah,
help them out
one of these days. But no, Klay Thompson also mild left ankle sprain. So
and that's okay. So that's part of it, right? He's probably going to play on Wednesday, but he's hurt. He's not shooting the ball well. Everyone's worried about the Warriors resting these guys 10, 15, 20 games, right? That's what we heard. That was the pushback we got when we were saying pick Steph Curry high. Klay Thompson's going to score you 20 points a game. Klay Thompson's going to be a top 30
fantasy player at the end of the season. Klay Thompson is just really, really good, guys.
Do me a favor, everybody out there, all the listeners, go out there and look at what he did the last 3 years, and you probably won't find a more consistent player. That is just what he does. He's averaged 0.8 steals for 3 straight seasons. Like, he is just consistent. He knows his place on this team, and it is going to be a 20-point scorer with 3 3-pointers per game.
So I've got 2 guys. I'm going to throw them out there right here, and I think I can take both guys and get Klay Thompson for him. First one, DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, you definitely can.
Right, and DeMar DeRozan's playing out of his mind right now. I don't think that keeps up. I think Pop limits the minutes at some point. And
he'll revert to the mean as well. Like,
yeah, and I think I'd rather have Klay Thompson. And the second guy was the guy you just mentioned, Mr. Jason Tatum.
Oh yeah, yeah. You definitely. I don't know if you definitely can, but I would trade. I'd rather have Klay Thompson.
Yeah, and so I think that's just the guy. Maybe you can float an offer and get Klay Thompson. And people panic way too much about things that aren't even real things. Like something. We'll talk about this with Vucevic. Man, Vucevic had a triple-double, and a guy hit me up on Twitter. He's like, should I trade Vucevic now? I'm like,
maybe.
No. I'm like, no. Like, I'm like, no. Who can you get? And I'm like, he's like named a couple players like he thought he could get. And I'm like, man, I think Vucevic is better than those guys like in the whole season. I mean, I said it in our bold predictions, right? He's a top 35 player, I think. Like, Vucevic is always real good. And, Steve Clifford said it the other day. I think it was, he said that Bamba's really not ready to play in the NBA. And it's something I've been saying ever since they drafted him. Like, most draft experts said he's just not ready. He's just not going to be ready from day one. His body's not there yet. And so, sure, they might trade Vucevic at some point, whatever. I think they know Vucevic is their best player. So you take that for what it's worth. I think he ends this whole season on the Magic. I think he ends up a top 35 player, and maybe he's a guy you can buy low on because other people aren't viewing him that way. I don't know, but
yeah, maybe. We said it early and often. You even went so far to say he's top 35 player, but they're gonna want to not look embarrassingly terrible. They're going to want to, look competent as a franchise, and they were going to play Vujovic enough to be fantasy relevant. And if he happened to play more, well, then he's a top tier fantasy player. And right now he's playing a little bit more. He might revert back to like 28 some minutes a game, but like, who cares? Like, unless you think you can trade him for Karl Anthony Towns, which you're not going to, he's fantastic, and you should hold on to him.
Yeah, so I mean, just don't take the bait. All right, I'll list my 5 honorable mentions, and we don't even have to talk about these guys unless you want to. So the 5 honorable mention buy lows: Brandon Ingram, 2 guys who haven't played a game yet, and John Collins and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. Kyle Anderson, I understand he's not starting, but Chandler Parsons is made of glass and is now already hurt. So go out there and buy Kyle Anderson real fast if you can. And Dennis Smith Jr. is a guy who maybe gets dropped in your league. He's been pretty bad. And yes, he's going to be inefficient as far as percentages, but he averaged 15 and 5 last year, 15 points, 5 assists a game. And I don't see any reason he probably can't do that in year number 2, especially with the increase in pace for the Mavericks. So there's 5 guys, the other guys that maybe you can buy. So, I mean, there's 10 people you can go out and try to buy low on.
I like that. Those are all really good buy low candidates. Tyler, do you have anything to plug right now?
You can go out on #basketball. You can check out my weekly. It's basically a weekly streaming article. I write it every week. It's going to come up on Sunday mornings. This week we had a little technical difficulties on getting it up. But the theory is I go through the back-to-backs and pseudo back-to-backs for daily leagues, and I recommend 10 guys for weekly leagues that you can pick up and throw in your roster and get some good stats. And it saves you some pickups, and it helps you maximize your games in head-to-head leagues, which is an easy way to win. So yeah, I've been writing that. And then if you are just a big Luka Doncic guy, after every game I curate the highlights which he had an incredible pass against your Bulls. I don't know if you caught that.
It was
Michael.
great. I was there. I wasn't there, but I watched the damn thing.
And so I do that, and you can check that out, and it's worth your time because he's just incredible, and he does a lot of incredible things with the ball, and he's got such a good handle and such good IQ and passing ability that he can make some defenders look real silly real fast.
Yeah, he is. He is fun to watch, and I think I'm pretty sure I'm gonna go to the game that Dallas when Dallas gets to Chicago. I'm definitely gonna go to that game just to see Doncic play and pay my respects to Dirk. Even though I have seen Dirk before, but you cannot see Dirk enough. You know, everyone should go check out Dirk at some point this season. Tyler, where can people find you on Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter at Tyler P. Watts.
And you can find me at Watch the Boxes. Guys, if you'd like the show, rate, review us, send us feedback, or join our Patreon. Subscribers get exclusive content throughout the season. That is patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. And we will catch you next time.